What's up, everybody? My name is Alex from Zelda Universe, and today I'm joined by a very, very special guest. He's a musician and composer and all-around super talented guy. It's FamilyJules.
Hello, it is I, FamilyJules.
Yup, the man, the myth, the legend. For those who don't know, Jules is a fantastic composer and video game musician. So many great arrangements. You've done so many great things. Your recent covers of like Paper Mario, Doom Eternal, wow, so good. Also does great stuff on his Twitch channel as well, and he also did Cadence of Hyrule. He was on the soundtrack for that, and he did stuff for the Melody Pack where you can just listen to non-stop Jules, and it's so good, and it's so exciting to that I know somebody who is on a Nintendo game. Like an official Nintendo game. That's insane. So today we're gonna sit down to have some fun little questions and stuff like that. And yeah, that's what we'll be doing. So I kind of want to start in general with just explaining your process when you look at a game track that you're like, I want to do this as an arrangement. What's your normal like process for that?
Are you talking for like YouTube and stuff?
Yeah, in general, because I feel like a lot of that can start slowly progressing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do a lot, so templating is absolutely crucial. So, creating kind of, when I open up a project, like making sure I have the same effects every time, so I'm not reinventing the wheel every single time I do a new arrangement or do a new anything, really. So what really helps is essentially having all of my tones pre-made, all of my drum presets pre-made, all of my mixing moves usually pre-made. Usually what I'll do is I'll have like one mix that I really liked, and I'll just bypass all the effects and delete all the tracks, and then just always record onto that one and try to build upon that so that I'm constantly trying to get a better and better product every single time. But usually what ends up happening is once I've decided on a song, and the process of that is I just, whatever song I want to do, it's usually something stuck in my head. I'm like, all right, I'm going to cover that this week. Or if there's like a new game release or something, I might be like, okay, like what's a cool song that people might want to hear from that I'm also hype about? I'll do something like that. What I usually do is I'll compile a big folder of sheet music, MIDI from, things that I can find online, very seldom tabs, but, if that's the only thing I have, I'll usually go with that too. But then I use that and, I don't know, my own ear to kind of compile a new arrangement of the song. And then I actually usually write everything out in MIDI first. Really? So the entire arrangement is usually written out using shreddage, which is another thing I did. I did it's a guitar VST that I did all the samples for. That's through Impact Soundworks and stuff. I love those guys. Nice. Yeah, so that's a Shreddage SRP, and I guess they rebranded it as Shreddage Serpent for Shreddage 3 is all my samples. So I get to hear how I'm going to sound before I even play it in a weird way.
Well, that's convenient.
Very convenient, yeah. So obviously I'll re-record over it. I mean, it doesn't quite sound exactly the same as, a human playing, but it sounds pretty close when it's in MIDI, which is good because then I can hear how a little arrangement part, like a little flourish or a little thing might sound in the full context of the mix before I record it down. That way I'm not going back and having to, oh, that didn't sound right, let me do that again. Like, usually there's one day where I'm just arranging the whole thing, writing out all the MIDI, and that's it. That's all I do that day because that is a hugely creative, draining process. And then the next day, all I do is I record it. There's no creativity arrangement happening there. It's just like the brute force recording all the instruments and getting it down. And then the next day, I usually film a video, maybe mix. Maybe if I still have energy after all that, I'll edit the video, and that's about it. That's kind of all. Like, obviously, I've got the process down from maybe like taking like 2 weeks to a week to do one of these, all the way down to maybe 3 to 4 days.
It sounds like you have it down pretty much to a science at this point.
Yes, definitely. Well, I mean, I've been doing it for 10 years now, so definitely.
Yeah, which like even seeing, because your first video that you posted, which I think was a couple weeks ago, which was like the Ocarina of Time Warp Song medley.
Yep.
Your first one, and then the next day you showed what it is now. Just seeing that jump, it's insane. And I remember that first video too.
Really?
Which was, oh yeah, it was such a cool thing to see back then, and seeing the evolution's been really exciting to see. But yeah, it's a very cool insight into that, because I knew there was a lot into it, but like the specific stuff of all the VSTs, all arranging all that sheet music and stuff like that, I think is very cool. I'm excited to hear more about how Cadence came into that in a second. But before we get into that, how did you get involved with Danny Baranowsky, who did Crypt?
So I, in my early days of YouTube, probably 2011, I covered a song from Super Meat Boy, which he was also the composer for. I was a big fan of Super Meat Boy, and I did a cover of the hospital theme, which is the World 2. And I guess he was at some convention or something, hanging out, and somebody was like, hey, have you seen this kid? He just did one of your songs or whatever. And I guess he checked it out, he liked it, he commented on it. I fangirled, and then we kind of, started, loosely talking after that. And, he would joke, he's like, hey, when are you going to do some of the Binding of Isaac tracks? And I was like, tomorrow. When somebody like that, messages you and says something like that, like,
you're like,
just like,
okay, next project, move next to the side. Exactly,
right. So, I remember I did a Super Meat Boy medley. I did some other tracks from the game. I did a Binding of Isaac medley. He loved it. He had it featured through his friend Man vs. Game on his Twitch channel, and then eventually it just kind of all came to he needed a guitar for something. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to play a guitar track on this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And what that was the Wrath of the Lamb Binding of Isaac final boss for the original Binding of Isaac, which was called My Innermost Apocalypse. So I did the guitar for that. And then I remember, at this point, we're friends, we're business, whatever. So he actually invited me out to Seattle to hang out and get to know each other and just kick it. And I remember he was like, "Hey, do you want to see my next project? I'm working on." A fun little game. It's like a rhythm-based game, and don't tell anybody about it, but I'll show you some of the first levels and stuff. And that was Crypt of the Necrodancer. And I remember hearing the music and being blown away by it. I was like, dude, could you please send me some of this stuff? And I knew that eventually I was going to end up doing some video on YouTube, so I was like, I might as well cover it, even though and just get it out there so that maybe in the future I have a song ready. I don't have to worry about it, because I've already done it. And I ended up doing the first 3 songs, the first 1 1 1 2 1 3, and I sent it to him. He loved it, and because of that, he got the idea. Hey, what if we did a full soundtrack? A full metal soundtrack that's alternative to it. And I was like, of course, yeah, let's do it. And obviously this kind of set the stage for what Cadence of Hyrule ended up being too, because I did all of the original guitars for Crypt of the Necrodancer, and then when Cadence of Hyrule came around, Danny was like, want to be in a Zelda game? And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I think I could pencil that in. I think I could pencil in a Zelda game.
Put that into my schedule,
yeah,
maybe a Zelda game.
I'll squeeze that in somewhere. No.
That was actually my next question of, did you sort of expect that when Cadence of Hyrule was sort of brought up, that you would be asked? Or was it basically out of a blue of, hey, I'm making a Zelda game, help me on it?
There was yeah, it was, I mean, obviously due to, NDAs and stuff, it was pretty much a very hello, this is what we're working on, and we want to offer this for you too, after obviously signing an NDA and all that stuff. But
right, of course.
So no, it wasn't just hey, Jules, I'm working on a Zelda game. I don't know, maybe I can get you in on it. No, it was it was very formal. It was very well, I guess the question was...
As formal as it can be for what the question is.
Which was a Discord message that said, hey, want to be in a Zelda game?
And then it just is there even a question? Yes, please.
Yeah, exactly. So that's essentially what ended up happening for Cadence of Hyrule 2. So I did the original soundtrack guitars, and then eventually for the melody pack for DLC 2, I did a full metal soundtrack for it.
Yeah, so, and I'm gonna actually ask about that in a quick second because, actually, no, let's not ask that now. In terms of like with Cadence's DLC, did you sort of know when you signed on originally that like DLC was on the roadmap, or did that sort of happen again out of the blue after the fact?
Well, it's tough because again, like, you know, with a Nintendo project, especially kind of being more of a contractor than being a you know, part of the team per se, you know, like part of the core development team, I was very much on a need to know basis. So it was kind of just like, all right, here's the next step. Can you do it? And I was like, yes.
Okay, cool. When did you actually officially start that process?
I have no idea. It's kind of a blur, honestly. I think
sometime before March of 2019, I guess.
Yes, very, very, definitely. I was probably wrapping up in March to April. I think the last recordings I did for Cadence of Hyrule was April 2019.
Gotcha.
But for the actual metal soundtrack, again, I'm not sure exactly when, but I know that I wrapped that up around Halloween of last year, so about a year ago.
Okay, so you knew sort of ahead of time.
Yeah.
All of Cadence seems to be, at least for the music, going mostly off of A Link to the Past's music, with some exceptions of like Song of Storms and stuff like that. When you started working on this with Danny, did Nintendo just sort of give you access to all of like the Zelda sound library, or were there specific songs that Nintendo was like, we would like these songs?
I didn't really have contacts. Really, like my main contact was Danny. You know, like everything kind of was for the original soundtrack. Danny would be like, here's a track that I want you to play on. Here's how much freedom you have on it. Usually not much, but that's fine. You know, just give me the track. And then for the metal soundtrack, it was pretty much just like, here's the track, make a remix of it. So that's kind of where it began and ended for me, personally. Okay,
so it was all very specific stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Did any of your creative processes that you mentioned at the top, did any of that specifically change for Cadence?
No, honestly, it was all pretty much the same. I was working with a friend of mine for the YouTube stuff to get like kind of sounds and stuff to kind of just improve my general mixes and stuff. It's 16 in mono. He was helping me a lot with kind of figuring out new drum sounds, especially like I use a lot of Toontrack, Superior Drummer 3 packs and stuff, and he's a wizard with drum samples and stuff, so he's been an invaluable resource for getting the best sound, not just in general, but what complements my own playing. So that was an important part that eventually carried over into the Cadence of Hyrule metal soundtrack and stuff. So with those remixes, I very much opened my YouTube preset, you know, what I used to like make YouTube videos, and work from there.
Oh, okay. So literally nothing really changed. Did your process of like, you're going in creating a remix of a Zelda song for an official Nintendo game, did that change perspectives of everything, or was it just sort of like all right, same as before, but just a little bit more pressure now?
There's kind of a point at which you can't really think anymore. Like I feel like there's a point at which, like, you know, as you're climbing, that, you know, you are overly like analytical of everything that you're doing, and you're just like, oh my god, and you know, you find yourself overthinking a lot, and like just like, especially like in the beginning when you're like, oh, I hope people like my music, I hope, you know, somebody, you know, out there will be so kind as to subscribe. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And you know, you're sitting there and you're just like, oh man, should I do 2.5 decibels or 2.6 decibels? You know, it's just at a certain point, it's like, dude, come on, just put the thing out, you know? But yeah, like, I mean, it's intense in the beginning, but I think as you start to kind of, you know, I've done insane projects that I would have never dreamed of doing, you know, working with Grant Kirkhope, the you know, developer of Banjo-Kazooie, which was my childhood soundtrack.
I remember seeing that. Was so excited that you got to do a medley with him.
Yeah, and you know, John Petrucci from Dream Theater. It's been like, I'm still stuck in that project. Like, I'm still stuck like back there. So everything that's happened since then, I've just kind of been like, all right, I'm on the ride. You know, like I'm kind of just on this ride, and I'm just doing, you know, the best I can, you know, obviously with what I've got, but I'm kind of, it's hard to like, it's hard to really like feel the weight of it in a way when everything kind of happens in the way that it has. So I think for all intents and purposes, that's been good because I haven't overthought it, and I've just been able to like do it. And
that honestly seems like kind of a blessing.
Yeah.
When it's something as big as being in an official Zelda game.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely moments, you know, when I'm sitting here, you know, playing the Legend of Zelda theme for the overworld track and just be like, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. Cool.
This is my life. Okay.
Yeah, and you know, knowing that you know, this stuff has to be approved, you know, so I'm assuming it's going through a lot of people, and I'm over here playing like, you know, it feels like, you know, sacrilegious to be playing like, oh yeah, it's the Death Mountain theme, the one that everybody loves, and I'm playing it on an 8-string guitar tuned all the way as low as it'll possibly go before it just sounds like noodles on a wooden fretboard, like, and you know, and just with all this distortion, I'm just like, man, you know, it's kind of the same thing where it's just like, you know, this is what they wanted me to do, so I'm just gonna do it. If they don't like it, I'll change it. But here we go, and they ended up liking it. So it's
honestly,
cool.
Death Mountain's my favorite part of that. Like, that's one of my favorite tracks in the game. So
it was probably my favorite one to play.
That, yeah. So you also, I think, mentioned that it had to get approved. Did Nintendo have specific approval of everything? I'm assuming they did, right? Because everything had to go through them.
I'm assuming.
Okay. Now, because the nature of Crypt and Cadence have that like continuous sort of beat, did that sort of affect anything either? Doesn't seem like it did as much because it was basically already sort of created and they just said, okay, now add your stuff onto it.
I really didn't, again, I didn't really have a lot of, you know, or are you talking about the interaction between me and Brace Yourself? Or Brace Yourself and Nintendo?
More of like the beat of it, like that continuous like beat for the rhythm sections.
Oh, right.
That kind of stuff. It's like that's the specific part of that.
Well, I think definitely anybody who's played both Crypt and Cadence will attest that I think Crypt starts easier, but the skill ceiling is insanely high with having to like hit the beat and stuff. And for Cadence, it feels like they wanted to have more of a universally what's the word?
Accessible?
More accessible, exactly. So what I actually find is I feel like Cadence is a little bit harder starting out, but it never gets nearly as hard as Crypt of the Necrodancer can get, like especially for like the main story. So, and I think part of that kind of comes from, you know, some of the innovations they've done with the beat stuff, where it's like if there's no enemies on the board, you don't have to be on the beat. You can just kind of move and do whatever you want, and it's literally just like almost any other 2D top-down Zelda game. But yeah, I feel like that was probably you know, something that they wanted to make sure it was more accessible than Crypt, because a lot of people it seemed like they didn't quite understand Crypt at first. And like I think Cadence of Hyrule does a great job of also explaining how the game works, like with the whole tutorial part and stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. But like the fact that it had a very constant like beat that had to be there just for the player mechanics, that didn't affect any of like your actual like process in creating the stuff, right?
No, I mean all the music's already there, so you know, especially like it's all in 4/4. It's all like I usually don't have to worry about it. There's a few exceptions in Crypt where I think King Konga has a beat that's missing.
Oh.
So it's bump 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 bump. So you don't play on that beat, so that you get that feel.
Oh, that's
something
cool.
It's really cool, but that's something that I don't think that they ended up bringing over to Cadence. I don't recall anything like that.
I don't think there's anything like that to my knowledge either. I think it's all relatively in 4/4. That is a good point. Now, was the fact that the game was going to be on the Switch, in terms of like the hardware, did that lead to any specific weirdness when it came to the actual creation of the music, or was it pretty much easy because of just how the Switch was designed?
I don't know. Like I think I kind of just did my own process. I didn't really think about that stuff too much. I mixed it exactly the way that I would mix anything else, just until I thought it sounded good. And then I would send it off to Danny, and then I would hear back if I needed to make any changes, you know?
Okay, so you were really more of like a, hey, this, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, you said one of your favorite tracks to work on was Death Mountain, you said, right? Mm-hmm. Were there any that you had like a difficult time trying to figure out what was going to be the best for?
Yeah, probably Swamp. The Swamp dungeon was extremely difficult because it's a swing. And swing and metal don't really mix very well. I mean, they do. Like, when it works really well, but it's very hard to play. Yeah. Well, like, you usually play swing music with a lot cleaner instruments. So when you're using a lot of distortion and stuff, it's a little bit harder. You have to be insanely tight for those things to really articulate. Like those rhythmic, like, digga 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 digga. You know, like, you can't really... I mean, you could shred it, but then it's going to totally not feel the same way, you know? So, like, it really... For something like that was extremely difficult. One of my favorite stories to tell about about that soundtrack is one of the final things I had to do was the area or the stuff for the original soundtrack for when it's like calm, when there isn't any enemies going on. Danny asked, he wanted a resonator guitar or a dobro, and he asked this of me when I was at PAX East 2019. So not only was I at a convention, I was at a convention literally as far away in America as I could be from my studio in San Diego. And he was like, is this something you can do? And I'm like, let me get back to you. So what I ended up doing, I was actually around Berkeley. And, you know, I have friends from... Yeah. I was friends with, you know, people who were attending, Insane in the Rain Music, great friend of mine, another YouTuber who does video game stuff. I was like, hey, do you know anybody who has a dobro? And he's like, we can walk around. We went to Guitar Center. They didn't have anything. So what I ended up having to do, I was traveling with an Ernie Ball 2019 Music Man Majesty guitar that they were letting me use for projects. And I used an Axe-Fx, which is a guitar amp simulator. It's like a rack mount that simulates the sound of like a mic'd up amp and everything. It has a feature in it that EQ matches sounds. So you can essentially feed it a sound and say, like, get the profile of that, like what the musical identity of that sound. Store that. And then when I play guitar, which sounds like this, you store that, make my guitar sound like that. And it's absolute audio wizardry. But what I ended up doing was finding samples of dobro online and then feeding that to the Axe-Fx and then playing guitar through that profile to get the sound of a dobro.
Wow, that is legit like audio wizardry.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up... I recorded it, and I was like, there is no way he's going to want this. But Danny, if you want to talk about audio wizards, like, he put it in, he made it sound absolutely stellar.
That's so cool. And that was literally during PAX East 2019.
I recorded that in a hotel. Yep.
That's insane. Just because, like, I remember, because, like, I was there at PAX East with
yes, you were. Yep.
Because that was when... that was the Ocarina of Time panel. That was a lot of stuff. Because that was when you also went on tour with TRG, right?
That's right. Yep. So that guitar that I was playing with, a lot of the original Cadence of Hyrule guitar stuff for the original soundtrack was on that guitar.
Wow, that is insane.
But I did have to send it back though. So I told them this is an important guitar in video game music history. Honestly, like, you know, I joke about that all the time, but like, it is very cool that I think it's a step in a very brave direction for Nintendo to not only give one of their IPs to an indie company to make a game out of, but Zelda.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of. Oh my God, last time Zelda was given to any third party that wasn't like a Capcom, we got like the CDI.
I was gonna say, the last time that Nintendo gave Zelda to anybody, video games for an acquired taste is what I'll say.
I mean, I will submit, the CDI games are what kind of gave us the PlayStation, so there is that. But no, like the fact that they were willing to give an indie studio access to their biggest IP.
Yes.
Nah, that was a huge deal, and that was like when I saw even like Crypt and Necrodancer, I was like, whoa, okay, because I knew the lineage of Crypt of the Necrodancer, and specifically the fact that you can play it with a DDR controller, which you can technically do it with Cadence too.
It's true.
It doesn't always work. It's a little finicky because you can't technically get all the buttons, but it works.
Yeah.
Tried it.
That's cool.
But like just the lineage was great, and I feel like it does set a massive precedent.
It not only that, but it really kind of like, I feel like out of all of the consoles, Nintendo gets unfairly the criticism that they're stuck in the past and they're stubborn, just based on the way that they have always done things by their own drum. As opposed to like, you know, obviously Xbox and PlayStation, that's constantly at war with each other, trying to like, oh, I have the 3080 RTX. Oh yeah, well I have better, you know, and all this stuff. And Nintendo's just like, we're gonna make stuff that makes absolutely no sense, and you're gonna love it. I guarantee you're gonna love it. And we're all like, I'm not gonna want to have a portable and a non-portable console complete, and then literally the best-selling console ever, right?
I don't want to have to buy a Ring Fit for exercise. Ring Fit's been sold out for months.
Sold out, exactly. So like that's, so what's cool about it too is that I feel like, you know, obviously there's like why the CDI games came into existence is an interesting story.
Right.
You know, between those companies, but I think it really goes to show that Nintendo is moving forward by leaving that in the past and giving it another try with Brace Yourself, and it worked. Like
it worked very well.
Even though, like, you know, Cadence of Hyrule is not like, I mean, it did sell insanely well. The only thing that it was beat out by on release for weeks was NBA, because that had a I don't know if you remember, it had a price glitch where...
Was that when it was 99 cents?
Yes. So it was like a $60 game that was glitched out to 99 cents, and instead of fix it, they were like, oh well, just keep it. And because of that, it sold insanely well. Everyone was buying it because it was just like a basketball game that's usually like a huge AAA game for...
I remember that, and I thought that was honestly an intentional move. I didn't realize it was a glitch that 2K was like, you know what? People will buy it. Screw it.
Who knows? It might have been an intentional move. You never know.
I thought it was intentional, but not like...
You never know.
That makes sense. But then people buy a basketball game on Switch that also doesn't look as good as anything else. Okay.
Well, I mean, there's different kinds of gamers. You know what I mean?
People buy it.
Like, you know, there's an insane fan base for sports games that almost doesn't really cross into the other game genres nearly as much. I mean, I remember I used to play a lot of like MLB and stuff, and the people that I would talk about like MLB for the PlayStation, like I can never talk to the same people about Twilight Princess. You know what I mean? Like, so they're
rare.
It's a different universe in video gaming, but it exists, so. And it's rabid.
Yeah. The Magic brought up MLB is very funny to me because I was literally about to buy the new one because it's on sale.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I really would love to see the precedent for Nintendo now is just like, especially now that they're working with Universal and Illumination for Mario.
Yeah.
Let's see them throw Zelda at somebody and see what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I knew, even though I was talking about kind of the weight of, you know, and just kind of like just doing my thing, I always at every step of the way understood the weight of, like, Nintendo is allowing Brace Yourself, an indie company, to make a Zelda game. Like, I knew what that meant, you know, being as deep of a Zelda fan as I was. I knew that this is history, you know what I mean? Like in a weird way, like, no, it's not a main series Zelda, but this is history. This is historic. How this does will probably set the stage for how Nintendo deals with allowing their IPs to any other company, indie or not.
Yeah, just being main is not even a big deal. It's just the fact that it's there, I think, is a big thing, and I that's why I'm so excited about it.
Yeah.
And why I'm very excited for Pack 3 to be played right after I throw everything in editing. We're gonna end this off with a little bit of a rapid fire.
Cool.
Which is going to be, that's about a bunch of other stuff. Could be Zelda, really, could be not. Let's start. What was the first game you've ever played?
It was probably The Legend of Zelda. I can't remember exactly, but I remember having an NES at my grandfather's house, and it had the cartridge, the golden Legend of Zelda cartridge for the NES, and then the Mario Bros. / Duck Hunt cartridge, and it was both of those interchanging is what I was playing.
Nice. What was the first console you ever purchased?
The first console with my money or my mom's money?
Your money.
My money. Xbox 360, I believe.
Nice. Was it the one that the original one or the S model?
The white one. I don't know. I don't like again.
Was it one that red ringed? Guess
don't
not.
they all?
Mine hasn't. So.
All right. Well, I don't want to jinx it.
We'll see.
Yeah.
What's your favorite console?
The Switch.
Nice. Favorite video games?
It's actually pretty much all N64 games except a few. It's all tied between Banjo-Kazooie, Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Kirby 64, and then just slightly above those is Jet Force Gemini for the N64.
Ooh, that's a good cut.
I love that game. And then I love Dark Souls, Death Stranding, Nier Automata, and currently Ghost of Tsushima might be one of my all-time favorite games. I'm playing through it right now.
Yeah, a lot of people have been telling me I need to play Tsushima.
It's literally Breath of the Wild, but with samurais. It's amazing.
Damn, I'm sold.
Yeah, go play it. Seriously.
Cool, buying that too. Do you have any least favorite video games?
Quest 64. That and you know it's almost unfair, but like that's the one that I always have prepared. I was really coming off of Ocarina of Time, jumping into Quest 64, and having very, very high expectations. I didn't give it a very fair shot, but I remember distinctly being very frustrated with not only just being very frustrated with that game, and it might be more me than it is the actual game.
I mean, the game is very, very flawed, though. Let's be clear. Just the fact that you had that ready, I found that very fun. Now this will be interesting because some of the music that the games that you said were your favorites might actually fall into this. What is your favorite musical score of any video game? Period.
Jet Force Gemini.
Jet Force Gemini.
Either Jet Force Gemini. Yeah, I think that's my favorite score. That tied with Snowboard Kids 1 and 2 from the N64 has probably the greatest OST of all time.
I'm gonna have to look at those.
Those bring me to tears every time I listen to them. Octopath Traveler is one of my favorite OSTs of all time, as well. I really love Persona 5 and the Metal Gear series. Never fails to bring a tear to my eye, and I think the best guitar soundtrack of all time has to go to F-Zero.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You said a couple that were from this current generation: Octopath, Persona. Any other ones that are favorites within this last console generation?
For OSTs?
Yeah.
Paper Mario: The Origami King is my OST of the year for sure so far.
Oh yeah, I fully agree.
I'm definitely looking forward to Cyberpunk, but I know that like what's cool is like that has like features of like Grimes and stuff. Who I'm a huge fan of Grimes. I actually saw her at the I went to the Video Game Awards last year, and I was live there for like the Grimes concert, the Green Day concert and stuff. It was pretty cool. Yeah, and then that's probably what I would say.
Cool. Yeah, I remember like playing through Paper Mario and being like, "Yo, Sniff City slaps, best song in the whole game."
Yeah.
Cool. Moving on to favorite Zelda game.
Keeps changing. I'm gonna I want to say Link's Awakening.
The original or the Switch version?
Original. I actually ended up playing DX. But I remember distinctly like that feeling that you get from Link's Awakening is kind of unlike it. You very close to get that from Ocarina of Time, but there is kind of a magic that Link's Awakening has that I didn't feel like Link to the Past had. Link to the Past is probably one of the most solid Zelda games of all time. Like if you want to look at just like checking every box, Link to the Past probably, but Ocarina of Time is one of the most just iconic move forward. Again, check all the boxes. In my opinion, I know a lot of people think it's flawed for some reasons, but and then Breath of the Wild is also like really says something that when you have a franchise that has so much expectation and it continues to exceed those expectations, really says something about Breath of the Wild. So that's why I have a really hard time choosing between Ocarina of Time, Link's Awakening, and Breath of the Wild.
I don't blame you. What you may not have a hard time finding, what's your least favorite Zelda game?
I really liked Spirit Tracks. So when I went back to Phantom Hourglass, I was a little let down. And that's but it was still, it's a Zelda game. It's still like at least an 8.8 out of 10, you know?
Most Zelda games are like really good anyway. It's just which one did we not like the most?
Yeah, it's almost, it feels like a waste of brain power to try to figure out what the worst Zelda is, because it's like, they're all pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
If you really want to play a bad game, you can find it. It's not in the Zelda bin, though, so move on, you know?
Unless it's Zelda 2, but maybe that's just me.
Some people really like Zelda 2.
Yeah, I know. We've got staff that does. Do you have a favorite and least favorite Zelda soundtrack?
My favorite Zelda soundtrack has to be Ocarina of Time. I mean, it's just, like, Link's Awakening has some magic to it that I can never put my finger on. But, like, the Sword Search song, Mabel... or it's not Mabel, Mabe Village, that Lost Woods from Link's Awakening is just something else. But Ocarina of Time as a whole pretty much defined a generation for video game music enthusiasts. And you can't deny it. You can't deny that soundtrack changed lives, and many of them. So Ocarina of Time has to be it. I'd be hard pressed to say any other game.
That sounds solid.
As far as least, I mean, honestly, again, it's tough. I would say Phantom Hourglass because I don't remember a single song from it. Every other Zelda game I can remember, distinct. I think a lot of people say Breath of the Wild, but I honestly think that's one of the strongest soundtracks. I mean, some of the songs...
I actually agree with that statement. It's got some really strong stuff.
Yeah, it has really strong stuff, but what's most important is it's strong when it needs to be. Like, everyone's like, there's no overworld theme. It's like, dude, you're in the overworld theme for like 80 hours a day. You don't want like the whole time. Like, you want, calm piano. Like, something that really puts you in that, like, the way you're supposed to feel in the overworld for Breath of the Wild is not dictated by the same song that you get from the Ocarina of Time overworld. It's something completely different, and they nailed it. So
yeah, definitely
just because you didn't get Gerudo Valley 2, stop complaining. I was so pissed off when everyone was like, there's no soundtrack for Breath of the Wild.
I'm like, soundtrack is not what you expect anymore. It's 2017. Yeah. Dang it. Yeah. What was your most recent console?
Probably the Switch, honestly. I don't think I've bought anything since then. I'm about to buy the PS5.
Provided they go back in stock.
Ever, yeah.
Right.
But, yeah.
All right. What's the most recent game you played? I think I know this answer. I feel like this might be Among Us. That or Banjo, based on your recent streams.
The last video game I played was, maybe Banjo-Kazooie, since I speedrun that. But Among Us or Ghost of Tsushima. I can't even remember. I don't remember what I had for breakfast today. So it's fine.
Part of a healthy breakfast could Ghost of Tsushima. What has been your go-to video game as of late? It's been Ghost.
Ghost right now. Yeah.
Dang. Yeah. I'm really about to buy Ghost of Tsushima today, aren't I? Dang it. All right. And my last question: say Nintendo gives you a call tomorrow and says, "Hey, we want you to make a soundtrack to any one of our IPs."
F-Zero.
F-Zero.
Yes.
You know what? Yeah, I could see that.
Yep. That's like literally. When you make music for a Zelda game, you start thinking, it's like, oh Jesus, where do I go from here? And then you start making some decisions, and that was it. It was like, Okay, I thought being in a Zelda game was impossible. Now, what's even more impossible than that?
F-Zero.
F-Zero, because we haven't had an F-Zero game since GX. However, if there is, it would be an absolute dream come true to at least play like something on that soundtrack, because that's what got me into the style of guitar that I play, is the F-Zero soundtrack. I remember, I was learning Avenged Sevenfold and stuff when I first picked up a guitar and stuff like that, but it was really like when I was like, what's the craziest guitar stuff I've ever heard in my life? And I remember it was like,
Mute City.
Big Blue, Mute City.
Blue.
Yeah. So I remember I printed out guitar tabs of, and they're probably like horrendously wrong. But like I printed them out and I like set them on my guitar amp, and I was like, one day I'll be able to play that. And I worked until I could play that stuff. And when I did, I felt like I've arrived, like I was like, I can play guitar now. But that was my goal. So to ever be able to do anything to give back to that series would be a dream come true.
Nintendo, please make this happen. Just
please.
F-Zero would be great in general.
Give it to an indie company if you're not going to do anything with it.
Why weren't they? I heard they were in talks with Criterion, who'd make Burnout to do stuff. Why isn't that happening? Hello.
I think yeah. I mean, who knows, man? I mean, Nintendo. Like, I remember when Nintendo got the trademark for the N64 Mini, and everyone was like, "Ooh, we're gonna get it!" But like, it's probably they were just getting it so that nobody else could take it. And
they were parking it before anyone else could. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's honestly a really great answer. And that is actually all the questions I have for you. So, Jules, thank you so much for jumping on and answering some cool questions. Yeah. Where can people find you on the internet if they want to go check out all your stuff?
If you like video game music, youtube.com/FamilyJules7x. Currently I put out videos every week, Tuesday at noon. There's a new video game tune that I'm playing on guitar, way louder than you want it to be. If you're more into comedy, I have a channel, youtube.com/JulesConroy. Where I mostly do highlights for my stream at twitch.tv/FamilyJules. You can come and see me anywhere there. Or if you want text thrown at your face from me, twitter.com/FamilyJules7x, facebook.com/FamilyJules7x, and that's pretty much it.
And, of course, you can check out all the cool stuff up over here at Zelda Universe TV on YouTube, Zelda Universe on Twitter, Zelda Universe TV on Twitch as well, and I think also Instagram. And you can find all the stuff if I do at Luca_Starks. Jules, thank you very much. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Go play Cadence of Hyrule. Everything's now available. Play it. And also play Ghost of Tsushima, because apparently it's a good game.
It's a very good game.
Jules recommends. Jules seal of approval. Thanks, guys.